Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stan Lowe. I'm Zscaler's Global Chief Information Security Officer. We're here today to talk about the cyber threat landscape, essentially who's doing what to whom and why. Um, First off, I'd like to say happy left-handed day to everybody. It's International Left-Handed Day, so if you are left-handed, as I am, this is our special day. So, uh, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick this off. As I said, I'm Stan Lowe, Zscaler's Global Chief Information Security Officer. As you can see by this little timeline, I'm sort of like the Forrest Gump of the cybersecurity world. Um, I've spent a lot of time in the government and in private sector and startups. So you can see, sort of for those of you that know your cybersecurity history, Admiral Grace Hopper was one of the first pioneers, or not the first. She was a pioneer in computer science, and she actually invented the term bug. But she came to my recruit company class and gave everybody nanoseconds, which she used to hand these things out. I've still got mine. So anyway, I did some time at DARPA, Southwestern Bell, U.S. Federal Trade Commission. My last government gig was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in the Obama administration. Left the government, a bunch of other stuff, and then became Zscaler's Global Chief Information Security Officer about 2 years ago, and it's where I sit today. They haven't fired me, so we're, as of today, so we're still good to go. So the first thing we're going to do is, as we get ready to talk about the landscape, is sort of set the stage. And everybody is always really worried about our state actors. So we're going to talk about the three main ones, and then we'll throw North Korea in there just because, what the hell. So first up is the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, or the PRC, the People's Republic of China. One of the things that is interesting about these folks is when they is their approach to this entire cyber activity and cyber espionage is they've flat out come out and said, hey, this is the national goal, this is what we're going to do, this is why we're doing it. And it's not often that you see them, any organization basically say, hey, listen, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to continue to do it. Now, there are a bunch of different reasons behind that, but primarily, they've got a large economy. They've got a large economic base that they need to continue. They need they need to keep that engine running. So one of the things that they do is they go out and they do industrial and economic espionage to be able to jumpstart that industrial base. That means they're skipping that entire R&D section to be able to get things to market, to be able to make bets in the stock market or make bets inside companies that are going to be able to further the goals, the state goals of the PRC, as well as help them develop an economic base that keeps their populace happy. We've gone literally 180-degree difference from the time of Mao Zedong during the Red Purge, and their complete and utter lack of interest in their industrial base and their economic base. And that was really an intense internal struggle that, for the heart and soul of the party, that then, as this new generation came up, they saw that in order for the PRC to continue to be able to exist in its current form, they needed to start relaxing some of the things. And the way that they're being able to do that is provide their populace, then the Chinese population, with the things that they see everybody getting. Because the internet, it's open for the most part, and it's hard to contain a population that doesn't that sees that the grass really is greener on the other side. So they're sort of bifurcated, not bifurcated, but they're sort of morphed their national goals into maintaining their current governmental structure, and at the same time doing that by loosening the restrictions on their population with regards to being able to, buy, participate, and use certain technologies and stuff, and have a way of life that is equal to what we see in centrally managed economies and governments. So one of the things that we're starting to see with the Chinese, and you'll notice that not too long ago here in the U.S., the FBI indicted, or not the FBI can indict anybody. The Department of Justice indicted two members of the State Security Bureau for industrial and economic espionage. Um, the things that we're seeing with them is not only are they looking at the traditional economic and industrial espionage activities that they continue to do, but they're looking more at influence operations, much like the FSB. They've sort of basically taken a lesson from the Federal Security, or the Russian Federal Security Bureau, the successor to the KGB, in that they're using technology and the internet and social media to influence either opinions pro or against certain stances that they have, or certain causes that they like, or trying to influence certain opinions or reinforce certain opinions for targeted countries that they're looking to sway one way or another, or reinforce a certain belief with regards to how that country, or those certain beliefs, or those certain segments of the population view the PRC and its activities. So they basically moved away from, now don't get me wrong, they are still active and enthusiastic participants in industrial espionage, especially anything that has anything to do with biotechnology research and development, anything to do with COVID-19 research, with regards to development of excuse me, of the vaccine. You're seeing them basically target those companies that have even tangential relationships, or tangential technology that could support or have a purview into, not a purview, but a roadway into organizations that do have a lot of influence, or actually conducting deep and heavy research into COVID-19. Just like any other organization, both state and criminal organizations, they're using the COVID-19 situation, or the pandemic, to be able to further their both their industrial espionage as well as their influence operations, by using, fake social media posts or phishing campaigns to get employees of these organizations that are, of a particular interest to them, to click on links. And again, like anything else, when we're doing cybersecurity operations, I mean, our users are our biggest asset, but they're also our biggest risk. And the fact that our folks are out, not necessarily in the office, and they've lost that herd immunity, and I hate to use a medical term with regards to cybersecurity, but it really is they don't have the ability to pop up over the cube and ask their buddy Kevin whether or not this is an awesome, should I click on this link or not, because their access to help desk and their access to the security guys isn't as readily available as it has been before. And so the state actors know this. So they're being very crafty and enthusiastic users of this pandemic to be able to further their ability to penetrate and conduct their influence operations, as well as their economic and industrial espionage activities. And that's not to say that, that there's going to be a continued use of this. I mean, this is not something that just suddenly started happening. We've been seeing this for a while. Just like any other organization, they're starting to look at, rather than short-term tactical gains, starting to look at long-term, over-the-horizon goals with regards to cybersecurity, and using the technology as a tool to be able to help realize those goals. And just like any other organization, we're starting to see them have the PRC have, as much as you can, they can rather have human resource problems, which with regards to is getting and retaining talent. They're having the same problem that the rest of us do. So what we're starting to see, interestingly enough, and we see this with the Russians as well, and more so with them. So I think the Chinese, the PRC is sort of, and the PLA are sort of casting a weather eye at what the FSB is doing, and saying, "Hey, listen, cherry picking some of the really interesting activities." So they're allowing their folks to start moonlighting. At least that's the supposition on our part, because we're seeing TTPs that normally only we only normally see inside that are inside the FSB ATP folks. We're starting to see those pop up in criminal elements. Now, that could be from the PRC allowing its best and brightest to moonlight or earn extra money on the side by working with these criminal organizations, or it could be some of the PLA members actually selling those TTPs to some of the criminal organizations. But we're starting to see those pop up, and not the well-known ones, some of the more, the ones that actually allow us to do the fingerprinting with regards to certain APT groups. Oftentimes, some of you are a lot younger than I am. So there's this used to be this thing called Morse code. And when Morse code operators could tell the hand of the specific operator by the way that they sent and received Morse messages. Fingerprinting ATPs and tying them to a specific set of actors is sort of the same way, and that's why we think these TTPs that work tools, tactics, and procedures are being tied to specific advanced threat actors, persistent threat. Depends on what you want to call them, but tied to these specific groups within the states is because we can do that, because we see certain ways that they operate. They use the same tools, the same activity over and over and over again. So it's sort of easy to, not easy, but it's sort of relatively easy to fingerprint these guys because they do the same. If a tool works, they do it the same way every single time. And frankly, some of the stuff that they have to do is not really that advanced. So we're starting to see that pop up in the criminal organizations, which tells us one of those two things are happening. Either they're moonlighting, they're allowing their folks to work, and if they get busted, it's like, we don't know you. They're disavowed, mission impossible, or they're reassigned. So that's pretty much what we're seeing from the PLA. So we're going to move on from these guys, and we're going to zip on over on the other part of the continent to Russia rather. I apologize for that for my Russian-speaking colleagues out there, and we're going to talk about the various different organizations within the Russian state. Yeah. And typically, we're mostly talking about the FSB here, some Ministry of Interior, some other folks here, but we'll lump them all into the Russian Federation. So the thing about the Russians, and they have been at this for the better part of 100 years. Well, a little over 100 years since the October Revolution of 1917. They are very good at planning for short-term tactical goals that get them to long-term, over-the-horizon influence operations. For the Russians, until fairly recently, though, that over-the-horizon influence operations were the name of the game for the Russians. They're basically looking to influence and either influence or reinforce certain behaviors, or spark certain arguments, or sowing distrust of mainstream information sources, and essentially driving chaos within the targeted country, both the United States. We've seen it in Canada. We've seen it in the UK, France, Germany, Japan, which is interesting because the Japanese language is nothing like the Russian language, but yet they made inroads there as well. But the idea is sowing that distrust of that mainstream information sources and driving chaos. So the focus of the target organization or the target country is focused inward and not outward on what Russia may or may not be doing elsewhere in the world. which is, it's interesting in that they've used that they're taking their traditional Soviet uh, military operations methodology, which is combined arms, which is use everything you got at the same time, to cybersecurity operations and security operations. So they're using all technology mediums. They're using, phishing, they're using social media, they're using troll farms, they're using cybersecurity offensive operations, they're using both state and non-state resources. So they are not above hiring out to or subcontracting some of this work out to some of the more sophisticated criminal organizations, either Russian or Eastern Bloc or South American or near and Far East. They one of the things that lends itself to that influence operation is we don't often see unless it's sensitive state information or obviously military information, which everybody's interested in. But typically, when they penetrate an organization, it's very aggressive to try and get into the target that they're trying to get into, and it's not necessarily the exfil information. It's more they just have a tendency to go quiet. It's a little different than what we've seen from other state actors with regards to trying to exfil information, and it's we see that activity. The Russians have a tendency to break in, and then they use that that penetration to be able to go dark. Now that means they're probably moving, performing lateral movement to go into the next organization that they're trying to get into, but they go very quiet and they go very dark after that, because then it becomes much harder to find them, and we end up playing a cat and mouse game. So with regards to that, they're actually, it's a two-pronged approach with them now. One is the penetration, and the other is, which is much more, seems to be a much more effective bang for the operational dollar, which is, the social media activity, because you're seeing a lot of this, especially with the elections coming up here in the United States, the elections that are just over the horizon in Canada, the ones that just happened. They're doing a lot of sowing of dissent and confusion with regards to with different either liberal or extreme organizations in most countries. We all have them. We have friends groups both on the left and the right, and the right and the left. And they're basically reinforcing those and giving them a lot more weight than they would normally have. And playing on people's fears. So as we're all cybersecurity professionals. If you're seeing this stuff on the internet, and if you got the skills to do so, my recommendation is to call BS where you see it. And then that way, at least there's some way to fight back. Now, the social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, we've seen a lot of activity on LinkedIn, a lot of activity on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, those types of things. If you see that activity out there and it's patently, incorrect, my favorite website is Snopes. I'll just refer back and say, hey, this is not right. It's Snopes. Take a look at it. One of the things that they're doing is that the Russians are very good at using existing tools and technologies and repurposing those to further their goals. We're seeing them use a lot of innovative testing a lot of innovative solutions and creating a lot of innovative solutions. One of the ones that went wrong was NotPetya, when they sort of were testing a new thing and they inadvertently burned down the house. That worried a lot of us when it happened, and I know it was a while ago, but for about 2 or 3 days, we thought, oh, wow, they've completely changed their methodology. Rather than going silent and hiding their tracks, they're just like, oh, the best way to do that is let's burn the house down. So that's what we thought was going to start happening. We thought, well, that's a huge C-state change. Turns out we overreacted a little bit, and it was just like a bad piece of code. Now, again, we talked about moonlighting and the PRC, but where they got that was from the FSB. So the TTPs that we normally only originating from states or state-sponsored groups are showing up in organized crime units, and that's indicative of them not, again, anybody that's ever worked for the government or had a government job realizes that this is not the best paying um, gig on the face of the earth. There are far better, ways to make money. I've discovered that myself, moving in and out of the government several times. Is that in order to be able to maintain those that the best and the brightest and the highly talented folks that they have access to, they're allowing them to sort of work at night for and make their own way in the world. Again, with a disavowalment, if they get caught, it's it's on them. That's why we're starting to see a lot of organized criminal elements actually have a lot better tool set, a lot better scope of or mode of operations, and a lot better success with regards to some of the malware that they're developing, some of the ransomware that they're developing, and some of the targeted phishing email accounts or attacks you see that are very, very well crafted with regards to the amount of and the detail of information that is used actually to build those. So we haven't seen the last of these. This is going to continue again. We expect them to, as protections are put in place, like anything else, the Russians will pivot and move to another set of tools. And again, it's incumbent upon us as cybersecurity professionals and IT professionals to keep our ear to the ground and realize and notice what's going on here and try and help combat this, both in our internal organizations and with our friends and families and on social media as well. So the next thing we'll talk about the Iranians, and they are they used to be, everybody's like, oh, it's the Iranians. I mean, we'll set them off in the corner and they'll eat their crayons and it'll be good. They used to be third and fourth string players. And the reason we thought that is these guys would, they were basically, excuse me, they act more along the lines of, high school kids out on a lark that would break into, their school and, turn desks over and spray paint walls and break, windows and stuff like that, a la, Aramco. That's essentially Aramco got burned to the ground because they didn't have any. They're like, this will be cool. And that's what they did. So they were known for that sort of smash and grab stuff, the destructive part of cyber attacks, which is, basically, if I'm not sophisticated enough to be able to do some of the other activities that they saw the FSB and the PLA doing, the only way I have to affect in their mind activities or affect national policy is basically depriving you of a resource. However, um, over the last several years, they have become very good, and to the point to where the Israelis and some of the other folks that are around in different governments are starting to recognize them as a force to be reckoned with. We started, again, they're providing support for certain, we think they're providing support. There's no direct evidence of it that I have or have access to support from different terrorist organizations. ISIS was one of them with regards to providing, material support for their cybersecurity operations, both offensive and defensive, for those guys. Their activity typically now is centered around access to industrial control and energy systems. We're seeing a lot of activity in electrical systems, into ICSs, air conditioners, HVAC systems. They're particularly interested in nuclear power plants for obvious reasons, as well as energy distribution systems, electrical grids and stuff like that. Obviously, government and military systems they're very interested in, and their goal is really control, to see if they can actually control those systems or obtain information on governmental positions with regards to their dealings with the Islamic Republic. So I think, as they continue to mature and as their skills develop, we're going to start seeing a lot more of the Iranians. One of the possibilities that we think may have contributed to their quick meteoric rise or up leveling their capabilities was possibly an interchange between the FSB or the PLA with regards to on-the-job training, or maybe some exchange of information, education, training their offensive cyber forces, both in the state as well as in their military forces. However, I think if you guys and gals remember back, I don't know, I guess it was about, I don't know, with COVID, I'm not getting out of this house. I'm like, I've been here so long. I don't even know what day it is. I think it's Thursday. But, I seem to have lost track of time here. But I think it was before, about a couple of months before RSA. So it would have been like October, November of last year. The FSB basically kicked the Iranians out of a long and arduously developed bot farm that they were using to deliver malware and all this other stuff like that. So I don't know if that was a false flag or that was the FSB. There's conjecture that the FSB was showing them like, hey, listen, even though we're giving you stuff, we can still, we can still kick you around the block if we want to. So it was sort of maybe a message from the FSB to the Iranians. Hey, listen, you're doing some stuff that we don't like. Don't do that anymore. And they kicked them right out. So again, there's some tensions between all three of those organizations with regards to if they, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. If they have shared goals, I'm sure on that they cooperate in some way. But they're also adversaries at the same time. China has fought several wars with Russia. And again, the Iranians are in an ongoing conflict with literally every one of their neighbors. So it stands to reason that there will be some areas of cooperation and some areas of conflict. And depending upon, again, everybody's biggest foe is NATO, which is, Canada, the United States, England, the UK, EMEA, those folks. So again, anybody who is outside of that foe who thinks that they can take advantage of to find out how those organizations are actually viewing the Islamic Republic, they will do that. So again, look for more on these guys. I think they're going to be they're going to rival the Chinese and the Russians. Because a lot of people sell these guys short, but hey, they invented math, so it's interesting to that came from the Arabian or the Persian Peninsula, so it's not beyond their capabilities to develop a world class cybersecurity force, offensive and both defensive, on their own. So one of the last state actors that's left is our always our favorite friends, the North Koreans. Again, most of what the North Koreans are capable of, or what the Iranians were basically smash and grab. They're sort of like the ankle biters of the cybersecurity world, but they're. Don't be too offended, North Korea. It is what it is. Everybody's got to start somewhere. So the Iranians did that. The Chinese started that way. Everybody started, but that we're starting to see them get better and better, which means, guess what? They're getting a helping hand. They're getting on the job training. They're getting assistance from their friends to the north, as they do a lot of assistance. So I think we're going to start seeing the North Koreans become a power within the offensive cybersecurity world, primarily through and maybe used as a proxy by the People's Republic of China, depending upon what happens in the world with regards to how harsh the rest of the industrial world treats China with regards, or punishes China with regards to its cybersecurity espionage activities. So they may decide to up level the North Koreans and use them as proxies. However, So again, look to see more from the North Koreans. There's some evidence floating around. Kevin Mandia's group attributed the Sony hack to them. That wasn't very sophisticated. That was basically a spear phishing campaign that was successful. But I have the utmost faith in Kevin and his crew. If he says it was the North Koreans, I'd be willing to bet my next paycheck that it was. So that pretty much wraps up the state guys. So what we'll do now is we'll head on over to our friends, the organized and unorganized criminal elements of the cybersecurity world. Uh, and I call them organized and unorganized because there's the organized guys, and then there are the onesies and twosies. With the 17-year-old and his crew of four. You may call them organized, but I don't. They got busted, so they can't have been that organized. Unorganized criminal elements. So we're talking about the organized guys, and then the little packs of 3 and 4 folks. So the organized criminal elements, OGEs or not so OGEs, their main focus is money, and they'll use whatever tools, tactics, or procedures they can obtain or get access to meet that goal. Their sophistication level of targeting has increased exponentially. You notice those crappily, worded emails that were obviously using the first generation of Google Translate to get you to click on a link. There's not that many. You don't see that many Nigerian prince emails anymore. They've moved on to things like robocalling and your local internal police department is going to come get you because you didn't pay your taxes or something like that. You need to call us back and pay us, that sort of thing. Their sophistication is very, very high. It's on par with some of the states. And again, like we were talking about earlier, we're seeing some of the TTPs that pop up over into the criminal organizations we're seeing in the states. That's what leads us to believe that they're doing moonlighting. Holy cow! COVID is being leveraged heavily by everyone, and these guys are no exception. Again, they will use any natural disaster. They will use any news event. They will use any political event. They will use anything that they think that they can get you to click on a link to do something. They'll use literally, and they will send out the same email to 100,000 people, and all they need is like a less than half of 1% success rate, and they're doing great. Because this is a multi-billion-dollar business for these guys. So much so that they've actually become primarily corporatized. They have structures that are very similar to a lot of countries we all know and love. They have an HR group. They have set wages and salaries. They even have bonuses. They have, they have benefits, which is, I was like, what? Are you sure? He said, yeah, they provide healthcare to some of their best and their brightest. If your mother needs, heart medication or something like that, they have a plan to help take care, because it's in their own best interest. It doesn't cost them that much with regards to your ability to generate money. So they give you fringe benefits and bonuses and all this other stuff like that, which makes them, an actual honest to God employer. Although an illicit employer, they still have the same structure that we see in other large-scale organizations and some small mid-cap organization. There are two main real types things. There's the quick large score where you'll see, hey, somebody's Bitcoin vault was stolen, and they made off with their Bitcoin and stuff like that. There's breaking into banks. Again, the value of information on the internet is not insignificant, and it's a value to not just other criminal elements. It's a value to states. So state organizations are willing to pay large sums to be able to get data sets that allow them to further either their real world political gains or with regards to their military aims as well. So again, then we see the low and slow microtransactions across large numbers. Hey, we essentially, that's what the 17-year-old crew did. That group of 17-year-old with Twitter. Hey, I'm Joe Biden and I really like Bitcoin, or I'm Justin Trudeau and really, really, I think you should give it to my favorite charity over here. So again, they don't have to make those big scores. All they have to do is send out 1 million emails and like less than 0.5% click on those and give them money. They've made more than a return on their investment, as we'll see from some slides later when we come up, start talking about the cost of all this. And again, they're renting talent from the States. If there's something that they think that they need, they have the money, the cash, and the wherewithal to throw at those individuals to be able to recruit them, to get them to come in and talk and work for short periods of time. So again, that may sound like all gloom and doom and stuff like that, but again, we as cybersecurity professionals, we have to put in tools, technologies, and procedures that prevent this. And again, it's a running battle. It keeps us all employed, but it's not. It's typically not we spend a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of attention on the big stuff, not Petya, but really it's the little small everyday, things that we don't do, like patch or anything like that. So basically, the easiest way that I highlight that is the fastest way through your locked door is an open window, which is essentially, true, because it's not the big stuff that gets us. It's the little stuff that we didn't patch. It's that stuff that we know that we're supposed to do, that administrative stuff that we don't do. We wait an extra day to patch them, do a critical patch, or not all of our systems were patched, or we got 98% of our systems patched. And that other 2%, if those are out there, these guys will find them and they'll take the easiest route into your organization. So, one of the things that we did this neat little infographic. Cybersecurity criminals spend a little for big gains. These are some numbers. You can look this up on Zscaler's website. I think I also shared it on LinkedIn. But if you really, really want this, let me know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever, and I'll get you a copy of this. And it basically goes over the minuscule. I mean, I sometimes think, holy crap, I'm in the wrong business, man. And how many of these guys actually get prosecuted is stunning. The number of people that are doing this versus the level of prosecution is astronomical. So this, is not a bad way to make money. You used to hear about some folks who get nailed, but our ability to track these folks down and prosecute them is challenging somewhat, especially since some of these folks reside in some very non-cooperative areas of the world. So a good thing is a Stealer campaign, 183 to less than $1,000. This is US dollars. Ends up, basically either netting or costing $1 million per attack. Holy cow! You only need to be successful once. Ransomware campaign. The market of the data that they've got, and we're starting to see. And when ransomware campaigns first started out, we saw, hey, listen, there is no honor among thieves. Don't get me wrong. There's none. Zero, not a zip zilch. But it was a business thing for them. So they wanted to make sure that you got your data back. And, oh, by the way, they would actually tell you how they got in so you could go back and fix that stuff. Now they sort of do the same thing, but they keep your data. Because now that they know that you're susceptible, that they'll either come back for that, like, oh, by the way, give us more money, or we'll make your data public, or two, they'll monetize that data in a different way by selling it to somebody. So that's a fairly recent development in the last 18 months. But again, they're going to do anything that they need to do to be able to make money, and multi-use of assets is a great way to do that. I mean, that's very clever. And again, from an enterprise perspective, your record's worth $233 for the most part. Some's more, some's less. Average data breach is cost about 3.86 million, and that's still without any major GDPR fines yet. And essentially, it's a $6 trillion business a year for them, which is astronomical. That's more than some small countries' annual GDP or budget. So one of the things that we like to say, since Zscaler basically is out there and we're protecting our customers, we're 2.1 billion threats in July 2020 and 29.5 billion threats. And these are, typical cybersecurity numbers that we throw out there. But we wanted to put that into context with what we're seeing with regards to the rate of return for these guys. So our world's changing. I took this, the one on the left, 6 months ago before COVID, and because I did this brief then, and then I took the next snapshot, and this is the traffic breakdown that we see on our cloud. And you'll notice that the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 business now has increased exponentially. You see how most of the stuff that's taken up this circle on the side here are remote tools that are used to remote access information, data, applications. All of these is stuff that we see people accessing in SaaS. So it tells you that the way that our businesses operate, that the things that they're utilizing to be able to do the things that allow them to make your business continue to operate or run or protect and drive revenue are all changing. It's no longer on premise. It's all moving to the cloud. And this little graphic represents that very clearly. So as our world changes, some of the threats we see change with it. You guys can go look at this anytime. It's on Zscaler's external website. It's Global Threat Insights. I like this particular one. I just happened to take that screenshot right when it looks kind of like Donald Trump's hair. So this is my Donald Trump slide with his hair all combed around and stuff like that. One of the more interesting things and this is just a per second, this is on a particular day, we've crossed over literally 1.5 trillion transactions in a single day. So this is, the amount of data that's actually traversing our cloud as well as the rest of the internet is astronomical. So based upon COVID, as our people scattered to the four winds, Gary Hayslip, who's I like to think is a friend of mine, who's a CISO at SoftBank, basically was having a conversation. He was like, we talk about the Internet of Things, we talk about the internet as the internet of this, the internet of that. He said, really, frankly, I was shocked to find that the internet is now everything. I never thought for 1 minute at any point in my career that I would use the internet as my primary transport mechanism to access applications and data that my business uses. And he said, we always thought, holy hell, the internet is not stable enough for this. But it turns out, not so much. It can pretty much handle it. I mean, there were some hiccups in Europe, but for the most part, the internet expanded and the SaaS service providers expanded. And all of those SaaS applications that you're using move to the cloud, and you're using the internet, which changes the paradigm from a security perspective completely. We have to think about now, how do we secure that? Because since the internet's our new network, how do we do that? We can't secure the network. So what do? We phase down to basically, operating on cybersecurity from a concept of four pillars of operations. One is identity, what we know about you. Two is the device you're accessing. Is it mine, yours, managed, unmanaged, patched, whatever. Three is the location you're accessing from. Is it on net, off net, inside the corporate network, outside the corporate network, good country, bad country, whatever. And three, or is the sensitivity, the criticality of the application or data that you're trying to access. And then making a just-in-time, consistent policy application based on all of those for every single application, every stick of data, everything that they're trying to access from anywhere. So one of the things that drives that is, we need to think about how we think about cybersecurity. We need to think about that differently. We have to take off those blinders that we have from a traditional perspective, because our businesses, most of us got our jobs because we were good technologists, not because we were business savvy. That has to change. We have to think about our businesses in terms of how the business thinks about themselves, which means we have to learn a new language. We have to be able to talk to your businesses. We have to be able to speak the languages that they speak. We have to be able to give them the tools and technologies that they need access to securely to be able to do the things that they need to do to protect and drive revenue. We can't be cybersecurity. We put the no in innovation can no longer be the answer. That reputation has got to go. Otherwise, they will. They'll just go around you. And we see that all the time with regards to, shadow IT and shadow security and stuff like that. If you put too many roadblocks in their way, they're going to figure out a way to go around you. So you need to think about how you're doing you're architecting your systems and allowing your businesses to succeed differently in today's environment within the risk parameters that you're comfortable with. So one of the things is we'd like to basically say a reference architecture for secure and seamless app application. Your partners, your employees, Zscaler gets you both legacy data center applications and data, as well as stuff as SaaS applications in the cloud. It gets you an enhanced security posture. You're not managing hundreds of locations and thousands of devices. You're basically focused completely on secure access to applications and data from anywhere on the planet, and getting a great user experience no matter where they are. Consistent policy application and a consistent experience will allow your users to A, do what they need to do, but B, keep them from bypassing your security stacks or your security protocols. So Gartner talks about the enterprise perimeter is no longer a location. It's a set of dynamic service edge capabilities that are implemented as needed when an individual connects. We've come up with a set of design principles. These are the things that you need to design and build for. Zscaler, we believe we meet all of these, but when you're talking to your vendors and you're talking to your architects and you're building the system that's going to allow your organization to continue to function in an environment like this for the next 10 or 15 years, these are the 6 core design capabilities that you need to start building for. Seamless and direct access to applications, both internally and externally, in the data center, anywhere. Context-aware access that correlates the user, the device, and the application, and other characteristics. So posture checking, all that other stuff like that, based upon those four concept of operations. Flexible deployment. You have to be able to get this stuff out there, both to your devices that you own and to devices that your employees own. Because hell, how many of us had 10,000 laptops that were sitting there waiting for this to happen so you could hand them out? Not a lot. A lot of us are allowing, BYOD for the first times in our careers or in our company's existence. And, you got to figure out a way to secure that. And that allows that to happen. Again, we can't forget about user experience when accessing, critical data and applications that they need to do their job, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, that sort of thing. And maintaining visibility and the ability to troubleshoot, user connection problems, because, the internet is the internet. And there are sometimes places where, we may look at it as a reliable source, but there are times when you need to do some troubleshooting, and you need to be able to design for that. And in security and compliance tools, security is one of the most critical things that you need to think about, but you need to think about it differently, which is pushing it to the edge and controlling that access and securing that access and securing the traffic, not necessarily the network. So I don't know why it keeps doing that, but hey. So that's my presentation for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I think we have some time for questions, about 10 minutes. So I'm going to turn it over to our host, who should pop up here. And if she's got a few questions, we'll go ahead and ask those, and we'll see if we can get them answered.
Hi, Stan. Thank you so much. This is Farwa from siberX once again. We do have a few questions for you. The first one being, in light of the pandemic, have you seen changes in the behavior of malicious actors? The Maze ransomware group has recently been cited to offer discounts to infected groups. What are you seeing?
So remember, they're using novel tools, tactics, and procedures. They're basically giving you discounts to unlock your stuff, which is, again, that's really cool marketing. Remember when we talked about they're acting like corporations? They're using some of, for lack of a better word, the tools, tactics, and procedures that major corporations use to drive sales. But that is, it's a nefarious way to make money, I'll tell you. But you really have to be the lowest of the low to be able to take advantage of of a pandemic that has cost lives of hundreds of thousands of people across the globe to be able to make money. But hey, slime is slime and crooks are crooks. So they're going to use these types of things, and they're going to use these types of activities to make money. But they do it creatively. I'll give them that. They're very creative. We saw, I think, on our cloud a 30,000% increase in COVID-related campaigns and malware since from December, before December, when it was just first starting, until the end of June, and that's a lot. So yeah, they're taking advantage of this, and they're using all the tools at their disposal to be able to pop different individuals, playing on fears, saying that they're providing valuable, never before heard information, cures, all kinds of weird stuff, anything to get somebody to click on it. It only takes, they'll send out 1 million emails, and it only takes 0.5% for them to realize a return on that investment. So that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. We have around 9 minutes left. And the second question is, are nation states deploying bad actors to target critical infrastructure? How well equipped is North America to handle attacks on our energy grids?
Yeah. So nation states they're using every tool at their disposal. They're also renting talent. I mean, for the ability to be, nobody wants anything tied back to them, because, especially attacks on the energy sector, because that is a kinetic impact from a cybersecurity incident, which could engender a kinetic response from a government. Because national infrastructure is considered a national asset, and an attack on that, oftentimes in most countries, is considered an act of war. So as far as how well equipped the energy sector is with regards to fighting off these attacks, they're getting better. They're not where they need to be. There's a lot of work that needs to happen. And the mid 90s until the 2010s, 2014, 15, we were putting a lot of infrastructure out on connecting a lot of infrastructure, both legacy and new infrastructure, onto the internet to be able to more effectively handle or manage the electrical system. So we've got a lot of stuff out there that's legacy that we need to go back and retrofit with regards to cybersecurity protections, either through putting a wrapper around those, or segmenting them off from the internet somehow, or putting some type of protections between them and the internet. We're making progress both in North America and Canada especially. But I think we've got a long ways to go, but the capability is there. It's just going to take a lot of effort. It's like trying to boil the ocean. There's so much stuff out there, and more becomes to light every day. So it's an ongoing battle that we need to continue to stay on top of. Otherwise, it could have disastrous consequences, not only for individuals, but for economies and countries as a whole. Because nobody likes being without electricity. Everything we have depends on it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Another question coming your way is, could you comment a little on the aspects of social engineering and how much these have developed due to the pandemic?
Social engineering has always been, it literally is one of my favorite. I mean, it's the lowest investment anywhere with regards to social engineering. I mean, all you have to do is call it. I remember, I'm going to date myself, but I think it was like DEF CON 5 or 6. They used to have this social engineering workshop where they would put guys, and They may still do this, but I have stopped paying attention. But they would put people in a booth and they would say, okay, there was a prize for whoever got the most interesting. The target of the day was American Express or something, and then they would basically whoever got American Express to unlock or transfer ownership of X number of accounts won a little special badge and stuff like that. So social engineering is going to be with us forever. We just saw it with Twitter. We just saw it with a couple of the other hacks. Any kind of malware, that type of activity, getting individuals to click on links or give up credentials or something like that. That is an element of social engineering. Now, has that increased with COVID? Yes, it most certainly has. And especially since a lot of our organizations have now have a distributed workforce, you've lost that ability to get that herd immunity with regards to being able to ask their buddy next door, or contact the help desk easily, or contact the security groups easily, with regards to finding out if something is nefarious or not, whether it's a good lady is, hey, is this good or not? Should I be answering this phone call? And again, the way to combat social engineering is tried and true training. Just because your folks are dispersed now, that doesn't mean you go, okay, well, you get trained once a year. You have to step up your training routine. I mean, develop weekly, bi-weekly newsletters that go out to your user base, reinforcing the behaviors that you want them, alerting them to the things that you're seeing. I mean, there's all kinds of resources in Canada. I know the Canadian Mounted Police has an awesome website that gives you information that you can actually use in your newsletters with regards to combating these types of activities, social engineering. The do's and don'ts. I mean, there's basic stuff up there. Most provincial police departments have those resources as well. I encourage you to use them, but train your people. Constantly reinforce that message by sending out weekly email blasts. Granted, it can be kind of tiresome, but spoof them up some. Don't just today's don't go national or don't go CBC on them. Go 98 rock on them. Basically make it interesting, because the more interesting you make it, the better, the more readership you'll get, and the better it'll be retained. Make it cool, make it fun, make it interesting.
Great response to that one. One last question with just about 3 minutes remaining. What are the survival tactics to protect oneself, which third world nations should undertake during this technological warfare?
Pick 3 or 4 trusted information outlets. Don't just pick one, pick 2, pick 3, pick 4. I look at 4 different websites a day because everybody has a spin. So if you look at 3 or 4 disparate ones, I look at, oddly enough, I look at, the CBC, I look at USA Today, I look at Al Jazeera, and I look at what is the other one? The Times of London. So I look at basically, and the Register, because I like those guys. But there's a plug for you, Don. You owe me. But I look at disparate news sources to track and see how the information is presented and how it's spun, and then I use those to make my own decision. So fact check everything. And the internet is the easiest place in the world to bullshit people, because nobody on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. I mean, literally, you can be anybody on the internet. You can say anything on the internet. And I keep telling my kids, just because the internet, it's on the internet, doesn't mean it's true. Take the time to question everything that's presented to you as fact on the internet. There's always a reason why it's being presented the way it is. Use a little bit of critical thinking and use disparate information sources to be able to compare and contrast what you're being told, and come up and think for yourself. Don't let anybody think for you, because if you do, if you fall for that, you'll fall for anything. So that's my advice. Think for yourself, do some investigation, take the time to ask, why is this person spinning it this way? Why is this website or why is this email saying this? What are they trying to get me to do? Be that good cybersecurity citizen and ask that follow-on question. Why? Why is this happening this way?
That's a great response, Dan. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you today, and I'll just pass it back to you for some closing comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you showing up and taking a whole hour out of your busy days to listen to me prattle on. Again, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any specific questions. Nothing I've said here today is classified. It's all from open source and past experience. But if you want to know more about Zscaler, reach out to me. Our website, www.zscaler.com. Shameless marketing plug. But thank you all for having us today. Thank you for having me and listening to me. And let me take an hour of your life to talk to you about this topic today. Everybody have a good week. Have a good weekend. Happy Left Hand Day. And make sure you wash those hands.